Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Wakar Double honors to the elders, apostles, of Great Millstone, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim scattered through the four corners of the globe, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim that be like unto the speckled bird, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And I say shalom to you Akim out there. And this is a sit-down lesson for In the News on July the 16th, 2022 at 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on this Saturday afternoon. And this is a news article from RT.com, which was published July the 16th, 2022, from RT.com/world news, alternative news around the world. And the highlight of this news article from RT.com, and it reads, for In the News, Iran issues warning to the U.S. and Israel, threats of force against Tehran will incur a heavy price, the country's military has said. And this is a photo showing a drone is launched from a Iranian submarine during a drill in the Indian Ocean, Iran on. And it says the Iranian military has warned the U.S. and Israel against threatening the country after President Joe Biden in Washington will use all elements of its natural power to prevent Tehran from acquiring nuclear weapons. It says Americans and the ZIONISTS know very well the price for using the word force against Iran. Abbas Shikari, a spokesperson for the Iranian armed forces, said on Friday, as quoted by the local media. The officials also aimed a personal jib at Biden, questioning his cognitive capabilities and mocking the U.S. military as a whole, with appearing reference to multiple past run-ins between Iranian and American forces in the Persian Gulf. Biden have been drowsy. Watch, he threatens Iran. Shikrasky, if I pronounce his name right, said, watch your shoulders, soldiers' pants, Salakia, slip of the tongue. They might get wet in the Persian Gulf. The stern remarks came in response to threats made by Joe Biden during his visit to Israel early this week. On Thursday, the U.S. President and Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid signed a joint declaration on two countries' counting strategic partnership. Washington pleaded never to allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon, confirming it is prepared to use all elements of its natural power to ensure that outcome, according to the declaration. Tehran of Iran, however, maintains that it has never sought to develop such a weapon. It says Biden has an additional threats during the press conference, alongside Lapid stating that the U.S. is not going to wait forever for Iran to accept its demands in returning to the Nuclear 15 nuclear deal. The landmark agreement, officially known as the Joint
Composite's plan of action, the JPOA, has effectively fallen apart after former President Trump literally pulled out of the 2018 deal, reimposing old and slapping new sanctions on Iran. And I believe Iran did another counter move on against the United States. I believe they sanctioned like 61 Americans, I believe. So they was using sanctions on them. So Iran is using response back against United States and its allies, because United States is consistently putting sanctions on them. So Iran, and back in return, putting sanctions back on the United States as well too, And continuing on, diplomatic efforts to revive the deal has yielded no result so far. Right, because it makes sense, because after Joe Biden's visit to Israel a few days ago, they signed that declaration, security dependency, with the partnership and more closer allies with Israel and the United States, and continue to prevent Iran for their nuclear capability. Find further ways, even as continue to hit harsh economic sanctions on them, and many other ways to stop Iran for creating nuclear uranium capability, which they're still going to continue to do, because like I mentioned before in my previous videos, it doesn't matter how many harsh economic sanctions that the United States and its allies as well too going to use on Iran. That's not going to stop Iran from creating an uranium, of developing of a nuclear bomb in to their nuclear arsenal. It says diplomatic efforts to revive the deal has yielded no results so far, with the U.S. and Iran repeatedly trading blame for the stalled negotiations. While the U.S. officials has claimed that Iran has been rolling out new demands during the talks, Tehran maintains its Washington's responsibility to return to the original agreement and lift all the snapback sanctions in full, which I highly doubt they're going to do that right now at the moment, because they steady, constantly, consistently putting sanctions on Iran and people that's affiliated with Iran as well too, because Iran then counter back on the United States, putting sanctions on them as well too. So after all the recent activities, expect to see the revival of the 2015 nuclear deal is going to be at a longer and longer standstill, And then now it's turning into the nations clashing against one another, taking shots at one another, stopping one from nuclear capability and the other hitting with harsh economic sanctions, and the other threatening another, and the nations threatening one another. Two nations tag teaming against one nation, threatening them so they won't do their nuclear capability. So that goes to show you more and more tensions are increasing with the nations against nations and the kingdoms against kingdoms, and it's gonna lead into World War III, WW3, which is recorded in the book of Revelations 11 and 14 in reference to that, situation. And let's see. Bring out a scripture. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 6, and it reads, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars." You hear a lot of proxy wars as well, too. "And see that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." Right, because the end is not yet, because more prophecies are going to be fulfilled with the MOTV and the WW3, which is World War III, because you're going to have a lot of continued commotions with the nations against nations and different kingdoms of different kingdoms against different kingdoms as well, too. It's going to increase now more than ever, I'm going to bring out that Luke 21:9. This is the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 9. "But when ye shall," this is a precept, "but when ye shall hear of wars and commotions," which we're hearing right now, especially over there in, I believe after, it was like a day after or a few hours later after Joe Biden went to Saudi Arabia to meet with the leader of over there in Saudi Arabia. They had Israel was launching a missile over there in the Gaza Strip, and Hamas fired at Israel IDF aggression as well too. So, I believe Hamas made a statement was saying that I guess it's not, they're gonna continue to send airstrikes over there as well too, because a lot of tensions been going on and off between the Syrian border and the Israel border as well too. Ongoing non-stop confrontation between one another, between the border of Lebanon, the Syrian border, and the Israel border as well too. That you've seen non-stop, constantly, consistently airstrikes against one another as well too. So expect to see more increase of proxy wars, increase of nations against nations, kingdom against kingdoms, wars and commotions as well too. It's going to increase more than ever, because it's still going to be a lot of increase in tensions in the Middle East. It's going to increase furthermore. Tensions might calm down, but it's going to increase and escalate back up once again. And bring out Matthew 24:7. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 7. "For nation shall rise against nations, and kingdom against kingdoms, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places." Right, as we see the earthquakes in diverse places around the world, and the pestilence and the famines, etc., etc. But this is the main focus on the nations going against different nations and kingdoms against different kingdoms from an economic standpoint, verbal standpoint, and it's going to get to a physical standpoint. And we're seeing signs of that, and it's going to further escalate more and more and more, The more verbal assaults towards one another increasing, the more economic verbal assaults towards one another increases, and it's definitely going to get to a physical all-out war very soon, and we're seeing steps of that, And this is the book of Revelations, and this is the last scripture. I'm going to close it out. And this is the book of Revelation, chapter 11, verse 14. "The second woe was past, and behold, the third woe coming quickly." Right, because the second woe is past already, World War II. Now we entering the stages of World War III. As we seeing it starting to develop, and we seeing more signs of it, especially a lot of more tensions. It's going to increase more and more in the last days, especially in the Middle East, especially regions like in Yemen, places like Syria, places like Lebanon, throughout the whole Middle East region, Israel, the Palestine versus Israel thing. So we're gonna see these things increase more than ever. You got the Russian-Ukraine situation increasing, intensifying more than ever. Now you got the Israel versus Iran, Iran versus United States, United States and Israel versus Iran, and potential allies with Iran as well too. Is going to furthermore increase, and as we see these things the pieces are starting to fit together of entering of World War III. Like I mentioned before, just brought out the scripture, Revelations 11:14. The second one was passed. Now we are entering the stages of World War III. So with that, I hope this lesson was edifying through the spirit, power, grace, and mercy of Yahweh Yahushua. And first and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Wakakadash. Double honors to the elders, apostles, Brother Millstone, preaching word, truthful and fulfilled. And shalom to the Akim, scattered through the four corners of the globe, preaching word, truthful and sincere. And shalom to the Akim, scattered through the four corners of the globe, preaching word, truthful and sincere. And shalom to the Akim, that be like unto the speckled bird, Christian word, truthful and sincere. And until next time, I will say shalom and a ball.